Hello guys, my name is Sarah Herunisa. For now, I want to tell you about what is UNHCR in general. UNHCR means United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or we used to call it UNHCR. UNHCR is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, which currently has 239 regional offices and 138 countries in the world, with a total staff of about 16,765 people from different countries, and is divided into headquarters and regional office. UNHCR was established on December 1490 and 50. It means that UNHCR aimed at protecting and providing assistance to refugees on the request of a government or the United Nations to assist the refugees in the process of moving their settlements to a new place. For more than 60 years, UNHCR has succeeded in helping more than 50 million refugees, and its hard work also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1954 and 1981. Okay, the next slide. I want to tell you about history of the formation of the UNHCR. First point, the end of the World War II in 1945 left as many as 50 million people who later became refugees in areas such as Europe and Africa. Second point, this then led the United Nations to form the IRO, or International Refugee Organizations, which means a special agency to deal with these refugees in 1946 because of its emergency nature. In carrying out of their duties for approximately 5 years, in 1952, the IRO task was no longer continued and was replaced with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, in 1950. UNHCR it's because refugee problems that continued to occur after World War II. So the task of UNHCR at the same time was to deal with refugees at the end of World War II and refugees who appeared in 1951 or after the formation of UNHCR. Third point, UNHCR was formed through the resolution of the UN General Assembly on 14 December 1950, number 428.5, to continue the role of the IRO in dealing with refugees in the world, at which time UNHCR was planned to be operational for only 3 years. However, when the newly formed UNHCR didn't start operating immediately, they began operating officially to handle refugees in January 1951. UNHCR carried out its task by finding solutions so that they could find suitable housing. The ultimate goal is to protect the rights of refugees. UNHCR ensures that every refugee has the right to protection. The next slide. What is the mandate by UNHCR? The mandate held by UNHCR was initially temporary and will continue to be renewed every 5 years by the UN General Assembly. However, in 2003, the policy was removed so that there was no time limit in dealing with refugees until the problems related to refugees were completely resolved. Every year, UNHCR must take responsibility for its work before the UN General Assembly and the Economic and Social Council. Over time, the capabilities of UNHCR in dealing with the victims of World War II, which means so good that there have been changes in their authority, including, first, increasing the scale of UNHCR operations. Whereas the scope of UNHCR's main operations is European territory and expanded to all countries in the world by establishing representative offices in 120 countries. Second, the main activity of UNHCR when it was first established was to provide assistance in the form of settlement facilities for refugees, which means it's later expanded with social activities such as providing material assistance like food, shelter, health, education, and forming programs aimed at special groups such as children, adolescents, parents, women, and people with disabilities who experience trauma. Third, in a, an increasing number of international actors are partner of UNHCR in providing assistance for the protection of refugees or displaced people. Fourth, expansion. Expansions of areas that initially only served in countries that were safe and didn't have the influence of conflict, but currently countries whose conditions are unstable and not conducive or conducive are part of the attention of UNHCR. And then, what is UNHCR doing? UNHCR strives to ensure that everyone has the right to seek asylum and find safe haven in another country, with the option to finally return, reintegrate, or resettle. During the transfer period, UNHCR provided critical emergency assistance in the form of clean water, sanitation, and healthcare, as well as shelter, blankets, household items, and sometimes food. UNHCR also arranges transportation packages and assistance for people who return home, and projects that generate income for those who resettle. And UNHCR help changes lives that are ruined, like protection, shelter, of advocacy, health, protection individuals, and assess global needs.
Hello guys, my name is Bella and I will explain to you about purpose and concern, also role of UNHCR. The purpose is the agency aimed at protecting and providing assistance to refugees on request of a government or United Nations. And the next purpose is the main objective is to protect the right of refugees, and the concern of UN UNHCR is refugees. Refugees is people who flee due to problems, and their situations are often so dangerous because they cross national borders to seek um, refuge in nearby countries. And asylum seeker. Asylum seeker is someone who say he or she is a refugee, but whose claim has not been assessed definite, definitively, and they can decide the process the prosecution which are eligible for international protection. They're also internally displaced people. IDP is have a flat for similar reason such as war or percussion, but sometimes um, they legally under the protection of the same government, and their rights to protect their rights to protection under human rights and international humanitarian law. And there's a stateless person. This is an individual who is not considered as a national by any state under the operation of its law, including a person whose nationality is not established. And there is returnees. The returnees is individuals who were of concern to UNHCR when outside country of origin. And the last one is migrants. Migrants is they need to be treated differently under national and international laws than refugees. Okay, now so for the role of UNHCR. Um, the one role is protection, responsibility, remain at the core of the work. UNHCR is mandated by the United Nations to monitor and protect um, and citizens around the world, helping countries and individuals. And the second one is UNHCR is also a key to involving various institutions that help millions internally displaced people or IDPs. And the third one is UNHCR also contributed to major international aid operations to help victims of natural disasters.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Putri. I want to explain you about the agenda and the development of UNHCR in Indonesia. The agenda: first, determination of refugee status; second, relations with the government and capacity building; third, communication-based cooperation and protection; 5. Comprehensive solution; 5. Preventing a stateless situation. The development: Indonesia has not become a state party to the 1951 Convention Refugee Status and the 1967 Protocol, and don't yet have a refugee status determination system. This, the government gives the mandate, the authority to protect refugees and to deal with refugee problem in Indonesia. At the end of 2016, the President of the Republic Indonesia signed a presidential regulation concerning handling of refugees from overseas. The presidential regulation contains the main definition and regulates the detection, shelter, and protection of asylum seeker and refugees. Various provisions in the presidential regulation are expected to be implemented immediately. This will make the government of Indonesia and UNHCR work more closely, including the field of joint registration for asylum seekers.
Hello guys, my name is Indah Nurul Rahman. I want to tell you a study case about role of UNHCR in problems of asylum seeker in Indonesia. Although Indonesia has not ratified the 1951 Conference on Refugees, Indonesia has a long tradition of accepting refugees and people who need international protection. Based on UNHCR Indonesia data, at present, there are around 30,500 refugees registered at the UNHCR office in Indonesia. 28%, the total number of people registered with UNHCR Indonesia are children. 131 children come alone or separated from their families. Until the end of March 2020, mostly refugees in Indonesia came from Afghanistan, Somalia, and Iraq. The Indonesia government has given great support in granting permission for asylum seekers to be in Indonesia, obtaining UNHCR services and temporary residence permits in Indonesia, as long as they wait for a long-term solution that is suitable from them. But UNHCR has difficulty in overcoming the problem of refugees. UNHCR is considered to be not doing its well job in Indonesia. UNHCR has limited funds to handle foreign nationals who are refugees and asylum seekers in Indonesia. Refugees get help from government of DKI Jakarta, not from UNHCR. The period of protection for foreign in Kalideres, West Jakarta ended in August 2019. So they experienced the removal and reduction of weight from their camp at Kalideres Kodim. Some of them decided to leave at the camp and refused to be moved, then set up a tent on the sidewalk, so living in confusion and sadness. The slowness UNHCR work program in dealing with refugees in Indonesia, making refugees suffer even more. The DKI province government turned over refugees to UNHCR, but they still get help from DKI Jakarta. They still receive clean water and electricity. As an organization that has a right and obligation, the refugees it is regulated in the Article of Association of International Organization and Refugees Protection listed in the statutes of Article 8 and 9.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Rafael Agung Rifano. I will tell about the refugees in Indonesia. Many refugees in Indonesia still do not get proper places, even though they have been regulated in UNHCR Statutes Article 8 and 9 that telling that UNHCR must provide protection for refugees, including in the case of returning refugees to their home countries. If when they return to threaten their life, UNHCR still has an obligation to protect refugees and is the responsibility of UNHCR on the safety of refugees. After the transfer of refugees by DKI Jakarta to UNHCR take further step actions that providing assistance to refugees, give protection house to some refugees because some refugees live by contracting houses. Cooperation program with the World Labour Organization or ILO, Atmajaya University, and also Dompet Duafa, and will over young entrepreneurs to accept asylum seekers who have the ability and talent to work with them.
Hello guys, my name is Angriani Yusuf. I want to tell you about Salikes from Syria refugee. The civil war between supporters of the Bashar al-Assad regime and anti-government groups that occurred in Syria has become one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the history of humanity. This civil war began with the action of children who were the price people want to overthrow the regime on the walls of their schools as a provocative act and extension of the activities of the regime opponents. Demonstration then developed from protests against the government's repressive action, become demands for political reform, and then become demands for the revolution to remove the Assad regime from its seat of power. Until the 8th week, the demonstration spread throughout the entire region in Syria, causing a high death toll from civil society and from the Bashar al-Assad. The reason Lebanon is a Syrian refugee destination is due to Lebanon's geographic proximity, which borders Syria on the north and east. In addition, Lebanon also could not get international assistance through UNHCR in its effort to deal with refugees who were in their country because I did not ratify convention. But Lebanon was also a country ratified the Universal Declaration of Human Rights concerning statements of human rights that made Lebanon unable to just like that to refuse, return, or send refugees to an area that result in them dealing with things that can endanger their life. Therefore, in implementing the MOU in UNHCR, Lebanon carried out policy to safeguard the rights of refugees entering Lebanon's territory, namely to open the Lebanese border and to form a tripartite committee. Movement made by Syria to other countries cause complex problems. Some of them are problems in determining their status. Syria refugees who enter Lebanon are not easy for them to get a decent place to live. This is also because it conflicts with the population or Lebanese community because it costs resources for refugees and Lebanese people to be reduced, such as water, food, and access to health. The increase in Syria refugees to Lebanon makes Lebanon experience overcrowding. This impacting relation between the Lebanese population and refugees, causing social tensions. The inhibiting factors include obstacles in handling housing problems due to the lack of shelter provided. This is due to an increase to the number of refugees in Lebanon. Other barriers are obstacles in handling health problems, such as lack of health access to refugees while demand for health access to refugees continues to increase. That the role of UNHCR in dealing with Syria refugees may play an active role in providing assistance to Syria refugees in Lebanon. With UNHCR collaboration with the Lebanese